What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Nerd Kingdom. So recently a few friends of mine started DMing for the first time and have asked me for some resources, and while I was comparing a few things from my lists of tools that I use to run online or from a laptop and to prepare for games, I thought it would be a really cool thing to compile a lot of these and show you guys so that you can take a look at these yourselves. These are regular tools that I use to make my games just a little bit better or for improv. These are some things that I've made and a lot of things that I've found, and hopefully they're going to make your DMing experiences a little bit easier, especially if you're new. So what you can see on your screen now is a random roll table that I use, which gives me a prompt for every survival check. Something quick and fun that I can use to populate the world. So for every option, I have about 5 or 6 ideas, kind of just scribbled down, so I can always pick one I think is cool for whatever's rolled. So I use the survival check modifier, which you can see here, to determine if the survival check succeeds or not based on where players are in the world. So regardless of where the players wish to go, I always have something that can happen on the journey and always have a DC modification for that role. And that sort of allows me to constantly push the exploration side of Dungeons and Dragons, which is something that tends to get forgotten and left by the wayside quite a lot. So it's important for me to have something like this in my games to make traveling from point A to point B just a little bit more interesting. We can take this a little bit of a step further. So I like randomness in my D&D games. I like to be surprised as a DM. Now, a lot of DMs, especially new DMs, I recommend running pre-existing modules, and pre-existing modules are great, but I like a little bit of randomness in my games, being just that little bit more experience to try and spice up those adventures for my players. And we can take it a step further. So because I like random dungeons and ruins and things like that, I use several programs to create these for my games. It gives me something to work with. I need something that I can use and is pretty versatile so that I can use it multiple times. But I quite like just generating random dungeons and caves and using them to populate my world with. You can actually take a look at this. The links for these will be in the description, so you can just click on these and use them yourselves. Literally, there's nothing to download. You can just start using these right away. I also use things like D&D Beyond and PDF printouts to make random encounters that suit an area. Because I have literally thousands of monster stat blocks gathered from different Kickstarters or different online sources, I can't really use D&D Beyond for everything, so I'll often spend a few hours here and there making random encounters that I think would be fun and make sense for an area. So this is things like in my world, if the players are traveling close to a volcano, I might come up with a few cool encounters involving maybe a red dragon wormling, maybe a few fire elementals or something along those lines. And I'll put a few random encounters like that into my world just to spice up that travel and a little bit of exploration. Like I want there to be points of interest on maps that I generate. One of my favourite sites for ready-made random encounters, and the ones that are pretty good, is this one right here, and it actually has a ton of pre-existing stat blocks and based on location, so you can select the location you want to run in, and you can select the challenge rating, the average challenge rating of your players. Then you can select different creatures from that list, and it's just a brilliant site with a really, really versatile list that you can select different types of creatures from, and NPCs and customized monsters, and it gives you all the stat blocks of those. So this is like a really great pre-existing one that if I'm just feeling a bit lazy and I don't want to make my own stat blocks and my own random encounter tables, I'll just use something like this because this is just a fantastic resource. And lastly, I love role-play encounters, such as when the players might go around and they might meet a really powerful psionic mage NPC that warns them about an evil necromancer in the area. So I often will generate a ton of random NPCs to fill the role-play encounter side of D&D, and with this I tend to generate NPCs not based on like their actual physical stats. So I don't generate NPCs thinking about them in a combat situation. I generate them thinking about them from a roleplay standpoint. So this can be things like like their personalities, their flaws, what they're like, their temperament, all that kind of stuff I think is really important, including their background. And it gives me a lot of really key points on how to run that NPC. So this is a random NPC generator that I use for that express purpose, which means that this tells me exactly how the NPC is going to act. But their personality is entirely random. And I've actually generated some fantastic recurring NPCs through this means. So this is something that I use quite a lot of. And when you print off a few of these and you begin to expand the NPC's backstory, then you really start to come up with a character. It's nice to have a few of these in your back pocket so that you can pull them out at any opportunity and just throw them into your world and begin to populate it with interesting characters. So that is a few resources that I tend to use. This is just a short video, but I hope it helps, especially if you are starting off. Then you may find this sort of content really helpful. Anyway, guys, until next time, thanks for watching.